So hello again, Devin and Niall. We're continuing the theme on the IATF Auditor Guide, particularly under the process approach and risk-based thinking, the competency that focuses on performance. And I was interested in reading the guide that one of the skills is verify any customer specified continual improvement targets, and are the targets being met? And if they're not being met, is there plans in place to achieve them within a defined time period? So here we're not necessarily talking about customer concerns. Maybe Devin, can you give us an insight? What might be some of the things coming from customers that they require suppliers to improve?
Absolutely. So as you know, we all strive for continuous improvement with any organization. So sometimes the customers are looking in key areas, whether it be cost, it could be delivery, it could be capacity. These are areas where a lot of times the customers will focus on and work with that organization to develop a plan to improve in those areas.
Right. Okay. So I think the distinct thing we're talking about here then is not that there's necessarily been an issue, but this is part of the continual improvement process, but the customer is influencing what we have to focus improvement on. So now if we see then that there is this communication from the customer, take me on the audit trail then. How are we going to be using this information in an audit?
Yeah. And again, it could be anything really, couldn't it? It could be an MMOG type improvement, a sort of logistics.
Yeah.
It could be VDA 6.3 related, so moving an organisation from, let's say, a B to an A ranking. So those plans that the organisation has in place will be fundamental to them achieving that improvement, be it in whatever it is, whether it's so the auditor would be expected to follow up and see what actions are being proposed to achieve those customer expectations and how they're being deployed across the organisation. Because often the organisation will commit to improvements as well. We'll schedule those improvements and plan them out. So the auditor needs to be across that to make sure that the organisation is on track. And as Devin said, it's a fundamental of the IATF scheme as well, this concept of continual improvement.
Yeah, continual improvement, defect prevention, reduction in variation and waste. So it fits perfectly with that. And Devin, you mentioned about these improvement targets could be cost related, they could be quality related, they could be delivery related. So should we be auditing these plans sat in the office?
We always want to take what we're auditing to wherever it's being implemented.
Right.
We would hope to see that these improvement plans are being implemented either on the shop floor or by the individuals actually performing those tasks.
Right. Okay. And now if we see then in an audit that there are these continual improvement targets coming from the customer, and the organization maybe is not meeting one of those targets. So let's talk about cost down or reduction in PPM. They're not meeting one of those targets. What would we be doing as auditors then?
So I guess the first thing is I'm trying to understand why. So is it because the actions they're taking aren't effective, or is it sort of more worryingly because there are no actions? So and that would have different consequences potentially. But I think the key thing for the auditor is to understand, well, why are they not achieving that target? What's behind it? Is it inactivity or is it just ineffective activity?
And in that case, Devin, if there is a plan, they're not meeting the target, but they have a really robust plan, whether we're doing a third party or internal audit, would we raise a non-conformity there if they've already got this plan in place?
If the plan is in place and they're not meeting plan, then yes, you're going to follow and collect all the objective evidence to see if they're meeting that, and if they're not,
Yeah.
you can raise a nonconformity.
Right. Okay. So we're really looking at the implementation, I guess, of
Yeah.
the plan.
Yeah.
That it's not fiction,
Yeah.
but it's actually something they're really working on. Now, would this always be in manufacturing?
No, not necessarily. Again,
Give us an example maybe where we might follow one of these trails on a customer improvement target.
yeah. So I guess an example might be in the sort of product process development area. So
Okay, yeah.
it's kind of in the development phase ahead of manufacturing. Before manufacturing, there might be an activity going on in that area to improve something. So yeah, absolutely, it's not always in manufacturing. Essentially, the effect of it all will be seen in manufacturing
Yeah.
often, but it's not necessarily the process that is the target for the improvement.
Right, which is important then that we could actually audit this in several different processes.
Yeah.
Devin, would this be something that we would want to look at in our audit preparation then to see whether there are any of these improvement plans?
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to want to include these in your audit preparation, looking through your documents, making sure if they have been agreed upon and implemented that they are meeting the improvement plans.
Yeah. And now just one final question. Sometimes there's confusion, I think, about the difference between corrective action
Yeah.
and continual improvement.
Yeah.
What's the IATF view about that difference?
Well, I'm not sure I can give you that. I can give you my view, and I think the corrective action is about bringing the process back. So in other words, you're not achieving the target, and corrective action is required to achieve the target. I think there's an argument that says, well, you can only really start continual improvement once you've achieved your target. So I think that's
I think that fits because it talks about continual improvement starts once we've got a stable and a capable process.
Yeah.
So I think people often mix that up and they call, we've done a continual improvement. It's actually a corrective action.
Yeah.
So I think here we're specifically looking at the continual improvement going beyond where we currently are. We're not getting back to where we should be. We're going beyond that. So let's summarize then. So an auditor, as part of the competency under focus on performance, will not just necessarily be looking at complaints from customer, but they will also be following audit trails on any customer specified continual improvement targets. And they will be following the audit trails on those from the office, maybe following the audit trails down into the relevant processes. Some of those trails will obviously lead into manufacturing, but Niall gave the example maybe where the trail could lead into the new product introduction process, or maybe the maintenance process, or the shipping process. Next week, we're going to see a practical application of the auditing of these customer continual improvement targets and how we can integrate that in to an effective audit. So thank you again, Devin. Thank you, Niall, for your input.